You're listening to Guts and Grind with Siju and Sajan, making the real estate journey accessible to anyone.
All right, welcome back, friends. We are back with episode 32 of the Guts and Grind podcast. We are still on our journey of how to get your first rental property, whatever it is. And today's topic is all about where should you buy your first property. But with that said, I'm joined with my co-host, Sajan Abraham.
Hello,
How you doing, bud?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Living the dream.
How is it? Is it a good dream or a bad dream?
So far, it's good, man. So far, all is well. I have no complaints, man. Like the market, I don't know if you're seeing it the way I'm seeing it, but you know, people talk about the market's hot and all that stuff, and it is. Like everything's very expensive right now. But I'm starting to see some leveling out. Like I'm starting to see prices drop and things like that. And I'm a part of a wholesaler list. And so they send me properties and I'm noticing more properties come up. And I don't know what that means. I don't know if people are going to foreclosure or pre-foreclosure. I don't know what that means. Or if properties are staying on the market longer. I don't know. But I'm seeing some kind of leveling out, but I don't think it'll ever drop back from before COVID. You know what I mean? Like those prices are never going to happen again.
I don't think so either, man. What the way inflation is and the way of cost of goods of everything has gone up, I can't imagine. I could see a leveling out, meaning just plateauing, like you said, but I can't see it going back just because everything is skyrocketed. It's so expensive now. You know, I mean, it's going to take years for it to maybe even take a dip. But, you know, I was expecting a foreclosure rush last year or even this year, you know, but I don't know, man. The government's put a lot of things in place for home buyers to actually keep that from happening, and I think that's kind of helped the situation. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's kind of leveling out. It's kind of calming down, but it's still a fire market.
Yeah, you know? People are buying. I mean, when the deal comes, like when I look, because I'm always looking, right? When a deal comes, and if I feel that it's a deal, I see that it gets picked up super fast. So there's a part of me is like, oh, I identified a good deal. I just didn't jump on it. Like that was the only problem. Right. So, so there are deals to be had and people are buying, and I know for sure people are overpaying, but you know, it's kind of what it is. You know, as investors, we have to figure out, do we want to play in our own market, like in our own backyard, or do we want to go elsewhere? But you know, I mean, I think that's a pretty good segue.
That is a good segue. And
our first topic.
today's topic is all about where do you want to buy it? Right. I mean, you have to. One of the other elements we talked about, hey, what kind of property do you want to buy? But your next biggest, and I would consider one of the most important pieces of buying a real estate is where do you want to buy? You have multiple options. Obviously, you can buy within the city that you're living in. You can even buy within the neighborhood that you're living in, which I know a lot of people, you know, initial new buyers would love to have something in their own backyard, meaning even if it's within a couple miles away from their house, they can easily drive by it, check on it. If they're self-managing it, it's easier whenever the distance is shorter. And then there's always the option of investing abroad, meaning in other markets, right? Fortunately, we live in Texas. We're in Houston. We have a pretty decent housing market. It's not like a California or New York where it's so ridiculously expensive to buy even a rental property, even your first home. You know, it's pretty nominal here. You can find still those areas and pockets where it's reasonable. But, you know, I think ultimately, again, your limiting factors are going to be what you can invest first, money wise. That's going to be key. So it's going to kind of dictate a little bit on what areas you can actually invest in. But again, your options are you can invest anywhere within the city you're at. I always recommend at least within the city, if you're self-managing it, because it will at least help you guys manage those things and you have access to it. It's easier to do it without going out of state or out of city. Right. What do you think, Sarge?
Yeah. So to piggyback on that, location matters, right? Whether you're choosing your backyard or whether you're choosing something outside of the city. So everything I have is kind of like what Sid you said, it's drivable. Like the farthest place is like 30 minutes away from me, which is not horrible. It's not ideal, but so it's a good thing and a bad thing, right? Because a part of me is all like, oh, I could go do that. Let me go fix that problem, which is good, but it doesn't allow you to scale, right? Because you're only one person, right? And so if you have multiple houses and you have multiple problems, you can't be the one going to every single one. So sometimes it's a benefit that it's further away because it forces you to build your system. It forces you to utilize a handyman or an electrician or whatever it is to get that problem solved. So I did want to note that, you know, like there's goods and bads on both ends, but you have to, as an investor, you have to figure out, what do I want to do? What am I capable of? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And then move forward accordingly. Right. And so in addition to factoring in whether it's in your backyard or whether it's out of state, location matters regarding how desirable is that area? How desirable is that house? Oh, one of my friends, they invest out of state, and they said that one of their parameters is if there's a Chick-fil-A or a Starbucks, they feel more comfortable because like Chick-fil-A and Starbucks doesn't just pop up anywhere, right? And
Yeah.
so they could reasonably assume because they don't live there, right? They don't live in these markets. They're like, all right, if there's a Chick-fil-A down the street, then okay, like why did they invest money there, right? And so there's a reason why these big name companies pick the spots that they pick, right? And so again, this kind of boils back down to what are you willing to deal with? I think the previous episode we talked about the classes of properties. And so it's not to say that a class D property you should just avoid forever or whatever. Just know what you're getting into, right? Just know the type of clients you're going to have to deal with and like the type of houses you have to deal with and those type of stuff. So it's just really being knowledgeable about everything you're diving into before you actually dive in, but don't let it be a deterrent, right? Like you have to just keep moving forward and make things happen. So I would say location does matter based off of what you're willing to bite off. Because if you're willing to do a D area, wherever it might be, there's still a lot of money to be made, but you know, money comes with headaches, right? And so you could be in like, I have what I would consider an A class property, and I might have like a B minus to a C class property. I guarantee I make more money on C class property just because it's more of a headache and it's less desirable for investors that are trying to be hands off. But my A class property is so simple, so easy, but it's not as profitable. I mean, there's equity to be grown, you know, to be had or whatever, but as far as a cash flow basis, it's not as profitable. Sid, you had a comment?
No, everything you said, I agree with. I would say, your friend is very smart and in his using that as a actual, determining factor, right? Because obviously you're going to build your own style, right? Into what you're going to look for as factors that will make it more appealing for you. Actually, one of the things I actually do as well is when I look at a potential property, I just get on Google Maps, open up the, literally search for the address, look it up. I actually do a pan out of the area and see if there's a grocery store. If it is there, is it near a major intersection? Are there major thoroughways to get in and out of that neighborhood? These are all factors, right? Is there a school nearby? What are the big things that actually make people feel safe, make people feel good about living in the areas that they live in? And also, again, simple things like, hey, making a run to a grocery store. Is it desirable in that manner, right? Those are right. Those are all key things. And that's a great way to actually use Google Maps. I always use that as a tool when it comes to potential property. So it's doing your due diligence on that piece of it is going to be very critical.
Right. So like just to chime in, location in that regard matters as well, right? Because like kind of put yourself in the renter's shoes. Like, do I want to drive 20 minutes just to get to a grocery store? And some things that I look for, like I really like it when there's a hardware store close by. Because if I have to do a repair, I just could go to the house, check it out. Oh, the hardware store is just around the corner. Let me go pick the stuff up, come back, fix it. That's a minor thing because now I'm not the one doing that stuff anymore. But, once upon a time, that was the thing. Like that was a benefit. It wouldn't be like the deciding factor, but it was just an added plus, right? So kind of put yourself in the shoes of the renter as well, right? If you were renting this house, why would it be so desirable, right? And so that's something to consider when you're looking for the property that you're looking at.
Yeah, and those things, though, all those factors just lead to the appreciation factor, right? Meaning, in the back end of it, if something new even pops up, so sometimes I even, you get news of, hey, there's a mall that's going to pop up here, or there's going to be a shopping complex that's going to pop up here. You know that, hey, before you buy it, or if you actually buy it before that whatever pops up, before that Chick-fil-A pops up, your property is just about to pop. It's gonna increase in appreciation. So if you could do some of that due diligence, if you can get with your real estate agent and say, hey, what's the latest thing that's developing in these areas? One of my houses actually was near a freeway that's actually being expanded, and I knew that once that freeway gets expanded, that's going to increase my value of my house, hands down. So other factors to kind of take into whenever you're talking about a place or where to invest would be, crime. How's the crime, look in the area? And you can do that by, simple city searches, jobs, growth in the economy in that area. Saj and I are both from Houston area. So obviously we have a pretty solid, economy down here with oil and gas and healthcare and all the other big cities. It's a pretty big port here. So economically, depending on wherever you're going, I mean, there's even smaller markets in Houston. Houston's so massive that you have to look at each of your small areas where you're at as far as goes to crime, jobs, things like that. What are the things that or appealing to a family that's, if you're going to take your, just put it in my shoes, right? If I'm going to take my family into this house, is it something that I'd take my family to live in?
Right, right. And so like just to play devil's advocate on that, I think that's a good parameter or to set as far as like, hey, if it's good enough for me, it's good enough for me to rent, right? But then there's also the other side of the coin where it's like there's a seat for every butt, right? There's a butt for every seat. I don't know which way it goes, but you know what I'm saying. Like, so
Yeah.
just because you might not think it's desirable doesn't mean it's not desirable, right? Like,
Yep.
so, cause someone could use that. Someone loves the country, right? Whereas like I like the suburbs and some other people love the city, right? And so like there's different people for different houses. And so I think more than just falling back on like what do I like, figure out like what does the market need, right?
Mhm.
So like I've been really curious about Alvin. Alvin is just south of us, right? And so I feel like that's a good area, it's a good market, but I have no clue about it. I don't know anything about the people there. I don't know what kind of jobs they have. Like, do they all commute? But I think those are factors that you could easily research. I could easily start researching that and say, all right, what kind of income, what's the average income there? What are average rents there? Like, is it sustainable? And I think really that's the goal. So, but I will say this, like, be comfortable first. If this is your first property, if you're trying to get into your first property, you should do what Siju was saying. Like, would you be comfortable living there? Like, really, I would highly advise anyone to buy the house, live in it, and move out. Cause like that's what I did. And it worked out well. And like to Siju's point, my first house that my wife and I bought, we lived in it for like 2-ish years and there was nothing around. I mean, it was like in the Pearland area and this when Pearland was kind of developing and there was nothing around there. And then we moved and like, we rented it out and things started growing. And then I saw the equity climb and I was like, why is it climbing? And I'd go there from time to time, but then I realized they expanded the highway. They put a whole bunch of more shopping, like there's restaurants and gas stations and stuff that's accessible. They widened 288. So it's like it just it made the access to the medical center way better. So the prices of those houses kind of skyrocketed and I really benefited from that. But it was an unknown thing for me. I didn't know that it was going to happen. It was just a happy accident for me. But those are things that that you should consider. Like, would you live there? If this is your first property, I would say, would you live there? And if you could live there, maybe buy it, live there, move out, make it into a rental. Because that way you kind of know the ins and outs of the property and you kind of get your feet wet that regard. But if you've been in the game a little bit, I think you should step it up and do research on areas and say, hey, do the numbers make sense?
I agree with you. Yeah, and I think I was speaking from a safe space.
Oh,
If
sure.
it's your first property, those are things that you want to take into factor. And you're completely right. There's markets for every tenant out there, right? There's people that want all different types. They're in different socioeconomic classes and things like that, right? So it also depends on, hey, what kind of headaches are you willing to deal with? And that's kind of what location plays a big factor into it.
For sure.
But yeah, so with that said, it's all about, you have multiple options when picking your home. It could be, literally right in your area, in your neighborhood, if you want. If you like it that much and you have that availability of funds to do it, or you can invest out of state, in state. And Asad said, keeping that distance also helps because, initially as a new investor, you'll always be involved in the management of it, but eventually the goal would be to have somebody else run it. That way you're freed up to do more of your stuff, more time you can grow yourself and your portfolio, things like that. But location definitely matters when investing. Make sure you always run the numbers, know what the areas look like as far as jobs, crime, and growth and things like that. Because those are all determining factors of the type of clientele you're going to put in your house, not just
Right.
what the house value is, but just the type of clientele that you're going to have or tenants that you're going to basically get. Anything else, Saj, on that?
I think you hit it on the head, man. Like I think you brought up some very good points. And like I know we're talking about where to buy, but you brought up a point about like you're doing things yourself and then you eventually hire it out. And just on a personal note, I wish I started hiring things out sooner rather than later. I thought that I was saving money and I was learning stuff. And I definitely was, but I wasn't saving that much money. And like you have to put on the investor hat more often than the electrician hat or the plumber hat, because the investor hat grows your business and the plumber hat just maintains your business, right? And so if you're in the growth process, you need to keep growing, right? And just hire out the people that get the job done quickly and efficiently and get it done the right the first time. There are many times that I fixed something that I had to come back and refix because I'm not a pro. I'm learning. I'm YouTubing it just like everyone else, right? And so like, but it's better. I know it might feel like on the front end oh, I'm saving a lot of money. But really, you're burning a lot of time, and you need to value your time. I'm gonna get off my soapbox, but yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, everyone's YouTubing it, but you. The plumber's not YouTubing it.
Right.
No, that's great points. But yeah, just to wrap it up, I mean, hope you guys, stay engaged with our channel here. We're trying to, break it down bite-sized pieces. Keep following us on the YouTube platform or wherever you're going to catch us on. Subscribe, comment, let us know on anything that you need, or if there's other topics that we would like to talk about. I mean, it's always about you guys, because it helps us, right? It helps us share what we know and what we've kind of gone through. That way you don't make those mistakes.
Right.
So
exactly.
With that said, we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
Thanks for listening to Guts and Grind with Siju and Sajan. Be sure to tune in next time.